Welcome to another episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. My name is Zach, and I'm sitting down with Austin today. I'm excited to have this conversation because we were just talking about some things that I'm very interested in. You know, people making big decisions to start, flight training, and now you're a CFI after going through the program, and I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about. But before we get into anything, I'll give you a second to introduce yourself, if you wouldn't mind. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm Austin Tujo. I'm a CFI here at Thrust Flight. I've been down here in Dallas for almost 2 years now,
Mhm.
and I'm just excited to be flying with you guys.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, thanks. I'm happy to have you. And again, I talked about how a moment ago how you like have an interesting way of starting aviation, at least to me. To give people a little bit more context, what kind of got you interested in aviation at all?
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I'm really the first in my family to even consider aviation
Yeah.
in any regards.
Hmm.
Most of my family is actually terrified of flying because
Okay.
they don't know too much about it.
Yeah.
But I went through college and did a degree that's completely different than aviation.
Hmm.
Started getting into it and realized that's not what I wanted to do for a career. Uh, Very expensively flew through college just as a very expensive pastime.
Hmm.
And I kind of surrounded myself with all the Air Force ROTC buddies down there,
Hmm.
and they were flying. I found flying interesting, so I had that conversation with my wife, and I was like, "What do you think about flying?" She was like, "Do what you love," and so that's what we started doing.
It's really awesome. Okay, I gotcha. I have like a lot of questions about a lot of that already. And I'll try to choose my time wisely. But um, before I guess I ask you even more about your interest in your past before starting with Thrust Flight, what is maybe this is just for the viewers. We'll go real broad here.
Yeah,
What's one thing that you think people should know about you to kind of understand you?
yeah. Biggest thing is I'm just a normal guy. I wasn't the smartest, the sharpest crayon in the box.
Hmm.
Going through college, made decent grades and pretty dedicated into my studies. However, I don't have any special skills or anything that
Hmm.
made me a better pilot or made me a better student in that regards.
Hmm.
I just feel like I had the dedication to go do it. I think
Hmm.
that takes a lot of that to go through an accelerated program like Thrust is. But there's nothing real special about me. I
Hmm.
did my job, did the study, and did the time, and ended up getting the skill and I feel like I'm pretty personable, so I guess that's my only
Hmm.
big caveat I got. But otherwise,
Yeah.
just take some time and you'll get it done.
I think it also sounds like you kind of are really maybe interest driven.
Yeah,
Like you know what I mean. Some people are really good at I think doing something for the sake of they're supposed to, or maybe they set a discipline to do it or something, and maybe they can do without some of that interest. It sounds like your interests have been like what did you go to school for?
yeah. So I actually went for animal science.
Hmm.
I got a degree in agriculture for
Gotcha.
veterinary practices.
Hmm.
So loved animals, had bunched them my whole life, and as you said, interested in animals. So I was like, that sounds like a pretty cool career path. So
Yeah.
pretty spot on that
Yeah.
that guess there.
Okay, good, good. Because I think some people are so practical, they're like interests don't have anything to do with what I'm doing, and I'm like, I can't get there. I can't get to that thought
No.
process. So, what helps you? What helped you make the
Yeah, I
decision?
finished my bachelor's degree,
Hmm.
and I was moving on to go to Mississippi State's veterinary
Right.
degree program, the doctoral program.
Hmm.
Moved up there to get about a year,
Hmm.
build that in-state tuition, right? Otherwise, you're paying like double, and oh my
Exactly.
gosh. Um, so I get up there, and I continued that for a while,
Hmm.
and I realized actually that's not what I wanted to do post
Hmm.
grad, and that's when I had that conversation with the wife. Hey,
Okay.
maybe time to switch it up and do something better.
Hmm.
Aviation came up, and I loved
Hmm.
flying. So
Gotcha.
once again, falling back on the interest.
When so there's two questions I have about post grad when you kind of decide like maybe I want to pivot here, and I'm sure there's like kind of the flying thing pulling you in that
Right.
direction, but there's also something maybe there that you're like I don't think I like this. What was that really?
The not like of why I wanted to pivot,
Yeah,
or
yeah. One reason why you wanted to pivot, other than the fact that you were interested in something else, was there something you kind of didn't like about what you were doing?
to some extent. So I've
Hmm.
been in that field for a long time. I
Okay.
was like the vet techs, so basically that take your dog back, do all the work, and then bring it back to you.
Yeah.
Everything but the doctor. I did that go through high school, through college.
Okay.
So at this point, I've been doing it for 7-ish years.
Mm.
So I knew the industry really well,
Mm-hmm.
um, and I got an upgrade, became like the manager of one of the veterinary facilities up there, and got to see the other side of it, being more direct and connecting with the doctors,
Mm-hmm.
and realized that's not a path that I feel like the mundane day in day out same thing every single day with not much. I mean, you have the critical thinking skills, but you're not really doing much outside of that.
Yeah.
Total respect to what they do, but it's just not something I saw myself continuing.
Hmm.
So that's when I kind of decided to pivot over to aviation.
Right.
Once again, what my degree wasn't in that, so it was kind of like that was one kind of like standby. I was kind of holding off, like been working 4 years for this degree. Do I really pivot and do something that's completely outside of that?
Yeah.
But ended up deciding that aviation has so many different pathways you can do beyond like 121 or the commercial guys
Hmm.
and like private chartering. So I was like, I feel like something that's interesting. You get to see your office is the sky, and
Right.
everything's new and different every day. So
And you're not. I hear a lot of people say that that seems to be a part of the decision. Where it's like, well, I'm not committing to anything too specific. It's more
right.
like a skill that I could maybe in an interest in a field in an industry. When you learn to fly, do you think? So one thing I want to ask is, did your wife see the conversation coming?
Probably saw it coming.
Uh-huh.
Find yourself a good lady. She knows you way more than you know yourself.
Right.
But yeah, she probably saw it coming.
Hmm.
It became to the day where I'd go to work and I'd wake up and be, I really don't want to go to work today.
Yeah.
That kind of conversation. And, you have that with her. I had that with her. And
Hmm.
so I think she anticipated it coming. And, my wife's a more introvert than I am. So
Right.
taking her away from, moving up to Mississippi, that was 8 hours away from her friends, her family. So that wasn't the right decision. You learn that going through marriage, you learn that. But
Uh-huh.
she saw it coming, and as I said, she was kind of wanting to come back to Texas anyways.
Okay.
So it made it easier for her, and she's a nurse, so she gets an opportunity job wise anywhere. So
Mm.
that helped too. So
Hmm. So a lot of things worked out in y'all's favor anyhow.
it did.
Yeah. Were you and so the other side of that same situation, were you at all a little nervous about bringing it to her?
Yes and no.
Hmm.
I already knew that she would be open to moving back
Hmm.
to the Texas area,
Hmm.
being so close. I said San Marcos, where we lived, and San Antonio prior to that.
Hmm.
So we had a lot of ties here in Texas. All of our family lives here,
Okay.
mostly.
Yeah.
Um, so I know the conversation. It would be the more hesitation was how she can react to jumping careers
Yeah.
and being in like I feel like after 4 years you should kind of know where you're going, you know what you're
Yes.
doing, and I did not feel that way.
Hmm.
So it was more in that hesitation. But at the end of the day, she's my wife, and you got to have those conversations. So
Exactly. And I guess I just asked that, and thanks for sharing
yeah,
that. Because I feel like that's not probably an uncommon
no,
experience.
it's
Because I
not
feel like often like, oh, I should have maybe this thing figured out so they can feel confident or comfortable.
right.
But I think that I mean, if you know you, it takes a certain level of conviction to want to sit there and say, I'm gonna have a hard conversation with my significant other.
Right.
And so I guess that's why I like to point that out. So you have this conversation, and y'all are like, let's make the move. And did you already kind of know how you were gonna start flight training past what you've already learned?
No, not a clue.
Yeah.
And kind of going hand to hand with that, what you were saying about you got to have those ton of conversations. However, my wife's excellent.
Hmm.
I love her to death. She's
Hmm.
amazing. So she was on the boat of do whatever makes you happy,
Hmm.
and that's the conversation we got to have. Like I'd rather if we're going to go into a little bit of debt either way
Yeah.
through vet school or flight school, I want you to choose the career that makes you happy when you're done and
It's a
you're
big deal.
actually in it. So find a great woman that does that for you.
Awesome.
As for I went on tangent there. I completely forgot what you asked.
I
What'd
know
you
you're
ask?
good. No, I mean I'll keep going that direction. I just don't want to pull right too
Oh
much.
no,
But
you asked, did I know what I wanted to do
Mhm.
after that? No, I looked into it, which also was bad in my last job. I'd just be like Googling flight schools the whole time. And I was like, oh, I should probably be doing something else. But
Yeah.
I looked into it. I knew I wanted to come into the Dallas area because
Hmm.
she wanted to work at a hospital down here.
Hmm.
So I knew I was going to do that.
Hmm.
But so I was like looking at, okay, what flight schools are kind of in this area, or what
Right.
options do I even have? Googling flight schools while I was at work
Uh-huh.
just kind of started the whole ball of, okay, I want to do this.
Yeah.
And I started Googling Dallas flight schools since my wife wanted to come up here and work in one of the hospitals here.
Hmm.
And so, a ton of them pops up. You get from 120 or 141 to all the way to 61 flight
Hmm.
schools. So I started going through reviews, started to look into it a little bit more in depth.
Yeah.
I ended up having a convention down here with my work
Mm.
into Dallas.
Okay.
So when I do the convention in the day, well, halfway through the day, and then when it completed, we would go tour some of the flight schools. So I went to several schools
Yeah.
down here, and Thrust had the qualities that I was looking for.
Yeah.
And so we moved forward with them.
I'm always interested in what makes people want to go ahead and go forward with Thrust. And a lot of people say they took a tour. What is it maybe about the tour you took that kind of sold you on thrust.
Yeah, and it wasn't the tour specifically that
Yeah.
sold me on thrust. It was the
Mm.
environment that sold me on thrust.
Mm.
My goals going into flight school was originally to find a school that kind of nurtured like camaraderie, that
Mm-hmm.
nurtured like friendships and building like inside the like have a relationship with your students
Right.
outside of either thrust or like student to student, instructor
Mm-hmm.
student. So when I found there, the first thing I saw was the students outside. There's like the 3 picnic tables we have out there,
Yeah.
and they were like completely full with just students, not instructors like giving
Mm.
lessons. It was just students talking among students.
Yeah.
And I'm a very big group learner.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the only school that I walked through that actually illustrated that, or something that without them like pointing it out to you, like, hey, look at all our students being together.
Right.
You can just kind of see it. And walking through the hangar, looking at your planes. The planes are great,
Mm-hmm.
but that really was my main goal coming into thrust or choosing a flight school. I need to find a school that like kind of fosters that kind of environment, and thrust was seemed to be the one that did that. And going through the program now, I got exactly what I wanted out of the program. I got a bunch of friendships and things, and now that we foster that outside of thrust now, which is great.
That makes sense to me. That would be important as well. One thing you mentioned earlier was I think some college programs do have, or even flight schools operate this way. They do have learning through almost online
Right.
solely. They don't have ground courses. Some programs have that.
Mhm.
And you mentioned, and I agreed that I wouldn't really be able to work
No.
that way. Can you like tell me a little more about that? Why not?
Yeah, I'm just not that kind of person.
Mhm.
Some people, that's great for them. They like to be at home, do all the studying. I can't learn that way. At least it's more challenging for me to do that. I prefer, once again, why I was looking for that group environment.
Yeah.
Some people also understand things a lot differently than
Yeah.
you do, and can kind of help you build that understanding.
Yeah.
But no, having the group class or the group ground classes here at Thrust made the difference for me as well, because I've just to some degree I'm not as disciplined enough to do that. I kind of like, oh well, I'll do it tomorrow, or I'll do it another day. While Thrust, like, well, you're here today, tomorrow, the next day, and you will be learning ground class during that time. And I almost need the deadline in order to, or the
structure in a way.
structure in order to make it happen.
And so that's why I asked that question. You went all the way there. I think it's interesting how you can maybe not want like the mundane, right?
Right.
But then you recognize that there's the sense of motivation or discipline can maybe come from like a certain environment where it almost feels like you need structure. So
Right.
it's almost like mundane versus structure. It's like, what's the difference really? And I think to your point, I thrive when there's a community sense
Right.
going on because I have something to feed off of. I would like to say that I could solo dolo accomplish anything ever
Right.
through sheer discipline, and maybe I'm just not that guy.
Right.
But I can tell you that if I'm in a certain environment, I can excel, even maybe past other people, maybe, or even though it's not about
Exactly.
that. But yeah,
Exactly. And there's a healthy amount of competition, especially among friends. I
Right.
thrive on that. I like the competition side. Like, oh, well, you don't know about this. Well, I'm going to learn it first.
yeah,
But also coming out of the college environment, having that structure,
Mhm.
post COVID, having that structure. I also experienced being in college during COVID that I can't do the learning via videos. I have to have that. So that made a big difference for me
Right.
coming in.
Okay, so awesome. Well, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
I would hope that, and just for the record, for the listeners and the viewers, it's a really big deal to us to try to have this as a part of our program. And I think it's maybe not everyone needs that. Some people like the like just buckle down and do
Right.
themselves thing. But at the end of the day, take a tour of whatever school you're looking into, and you can usually pick up on the energy that you kind of need from the instructors or maybe the students or at least the resources there. So Google flight school near me, look up the closest one to you, do a discovery flight, do a tour. If you're thinking about flying, you should, at least take that first step to look into it. And that might be the thing that puts you over the edge. So, because I feel like that's what everyone says they do.
So everyone does. And, I always tell anybody who's interested in flying, check everybody out. We want you to choose the best school for you specifically. Thrust has a lot to offer. There's a lot to offer elsewhere as well. But we want, when people come to Thrust, we like it when they're like, I chose Thrust because it felt like the place I wanted to be.
Yeah, and that's what I think we are selling at the end of the day.
Right.
Like maybe we're not the I just think that that's our biggest thing,
Right.
is that people like to be here with other people, and that's good because aviation seems like that to me.
Right.
At least when I talk to all you guys, but then again, I'm just talking to people from Thrust. So,
Yeah.
not only we have some airline pilots on some of our episodes. Go back and check those out if you guys want to see more of Pilot Say What. But now that you've kind of toured thrust, you've kind of decided, oh, this is the place I might want to be at. Are there some difficulties in changing your life to the point of moving across back to Dallas?
Um, no, to some extent.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, you have the hassle of going across, for us specifically, going across state lines in
Mhm.
order to get all our stuff here.
Mhm.
Um, if I was a little bit younger and I didn't have so many items,
Mhm.
or my wife and I didn't have so many items, it would have been a little easier. However, that's just the challenge. It's also one of those hurdles that you kind of anticipate.
Mhm.
Regardless, we were moving back to Dallas,
Mhm.
whatever flight school I ended up choosing, but
That's
not so much. It's once again part of those life things. Like, hey,
Mhm.
I'm making a jump to a profession that's going to help further. I have a nice career, have
Mhm.
eventually nice finances in regards to that. It's just one of those hurdles you have to get through in order
Yeah.
to do it. So it's a
Mhm.
consideration when you're even thinking about making the move. But
Mhm.
by that time of like, hey, I've signed the papers, it's time to move forward. It's already in motion. So
Right. So
not
I
so much.
mean, you're just kind of going through the necessary steps at that point. Um,
Exactly.
you did some flying during college, though. Did
Yeah.
you get your private?
I didn't. No, I
Mhm.
didn't. It was a very expensive pastime.
Uh-huh.
As I talked about earlier,
Mhm.
I surrounded myself with all my ROTC buddies.
Mhm.
Was not an ROTC before you ask. I was just that one random person that had nothing to do with the military, and I just happened to find all the friends in an ROTC. They were then
Mhm.
in the Air Force and some in the Army.
Mhm.
But the Air Force guys, they ended up getting pilot slots and RPA, so like the remote control pilots.
Mhm.
So it started interesting. That was really my first introduction to aviation. As I said, none of my family ever did it. So
Mhm.
talking with those guys, and oh, my grandfather was a bomber pilot, and they have all the whole lineage
Yeah.
going. So I started looking into it then.
Mhm.
Junior year of college,
Mhm.
got a discovery flight down there at San Marcos Airport, and I just started recreational flying since
Okay.
then, just with the instructor. I
Yeah.
never got a license or anything like that, and
Mhm.
then wish I did, but I didn't.
Did you log hours at all?
I did as a student pilot, but I ended up
Yeah.
getting like 30 hours
Okay.
in a Cessna
Okay.
through them, but never
Mhm.
never did the full completion.
So that means that when you came here, though, you probably just kind of started as if you were a zero-time pilot, right?
Yeah, you
Yeah.
did go. Now we have the finish line, so that would have been something I could have hopped in now.
Yeah.
When I started, we didn't.
Yeah.
So I started with experience,
Mhm.
but at zero on thrust standards.
Mhm.
But I do think I had a better understanding of like aerodynamics and like flight characteristics going into it because I've seen it before,
Right.
even though it was at least a year at that point since my last flight. So,
Yeah.
um, but yeah,
I've talked to people on the pod that just like the aviation bug like bit them pretty late. Maybe even you could be considered a little later.
yeah,
But they like they took a discovery flight only. Like
right,
that's all almost all they knew. Their family didn't do it. They've been a discovery flight. They found it a bit interesting. Maybe they saw a podcast or something,
right,
but then they signed up for thrust, and that's what they're doing. That's what they're doing on their first day.
right.
And I can only imagine, the overwhelm of new information and
It
thought
is.
processes.
At first, it's
Yeah.
definitely a lot. Once again, that's why it's so important to be in an environment that you can have people around you that might
Hmm.
understand a little more to help
Hmm.
break it down for you,
Hmm.
or other instructors that are, we're usually always there to help, and we're never gonna like shoo you off or anything like that.
Right.
So
Right.
being in that environment definitely helps, but it is a lot of information at first.
Hmm.
I did some prep coming in regards to like watching YouTube videos,
Hmm.
what to trying to help me understand a little bit. But it is a
Yeah.
it is a water hose, especially at the very beginning.
Yeah.
But you'll realize during the ratings as you kind of move forward,
Hmm.
things just kind of come together, and you're like, oh yeah, I've heard that before. Then now it makes sense. But initially, it's a big chunk.
Yeah, I can imagine, and I would probably need something like this, a fast paced program that would like immerse me,
Hmm.
because that's probably how I learn a little bit better. And just because you mentioned it, the finish line program for those who are listening, if you're someone who's like just flown recreationally, or if you've just kind of come to like a plateau in your training and you haven't really picked it back up yet, that's what the finish line's for. If you're eligible, you are able to wrap up your private pilot license within 5 days. That's just something we put together because there's a lot of people who came
Right,
here with prior experience and we didn't have any way to like individually take care of them.
right.
It's good to do that now. But you get here, you've started. Tell me, you're a CFI now and you made it all
Yep.
the way through our program. What's one of the things you found the most difficult after committing yourself to flight training, like something that maybe someone could expect if they're thinking about starting flight training?
The biggest issue with me initially was finding the balance
Hmm.
between the immense amount of study and preparation for next flights and at home.
Hmm.
As I said, I have a wife, so there's some times where I would be here all day, and then I'd go to the coffee shop and study with the buddies that I found through my uh, ZTA class,
Hmm.
and then be back home doing some more studying, doing flight planning or something for the next day,
Right.
and then back to sleep. So um, that was initially challenging. You do find it throughout.
Yeah.
Throughout the program, you kind of find a routine that works best for you. But that was the most challenging for me, finding that balance between overdoing studying or overdoing, because you can do too much. Your brain can only absorb so much in a day,
Hmm.
and you don't know that initially. You're like, if I just look over and over and over and over
Yes.
again, I'll eventually get it. But finding the balance of, hey, this is my cutoff, and also I need some time for
Hmm.
my wife, myself, in order to be ready for the next day and not come home or not go back the next day like burnt out or exhausted.
Right, and I know these words probably aren't even the most popular because they're used in ways that a lot of people don't agree with, and others do. But I
Sure.
like kind of like a work-life balance.
Right.
I'm sure, but the thing is you're looking for it. You're looking to find it yourself in what you're doing. I say the difference, but like what you're talking about to me just now, I feel like I've experienced that too. Go hard, go hard, go hard. Make sure I'm ultra
Right.
prepared. But at some point, like you said, you have to figure out how to fuel back up again.
Right.
Can you tell me a little bit more about realizing that okay, I can't learn anymore today, but I so maybe I should do something else. Like, what's that thought process? Like, how do you find out? Like, how do you find out?
One, have a wife to tell you to stop. But then two, I'd found out I'd be looking at something, I'd read through it, go back, and then I'd be like, okay, well, what was that last thing I just said? And it would be like, it was almost like in robot mode, just kind of just saying something more than
Mm,
actually just sticking in.
okay.
What I found that for me specifically, once again, finding those friends and groups through Thrust is what I did. One of
Mm,
my big goals were going here.
mm,
We ended up starting a softball team outside
mm,
of Thrust. So every Thursday, we're like, well, that's my like recharge time. We get a
mm,
couple, after 5, get a couple hours together, recharge, and then kind of be ready for the rest of the week.
mhm,
But for like day to day, I kind of just set a cutoff time for myself. Especially in private.
mhm,
You're flying mostly in the day because you have to be during the daytime.
mhm,
So I'd be off. You have a 2-hour block. So either I decided, hey, before this or after this, I'm giving X amount of time for myself, and
mhm.
then all the other time will be dedicated to studying.
Okay.
And that seemed to kind of work things out.
Mhm.
Um,
Nice.
but there's just a lot to.
Little things
There's
like
there's
that.
only 24 hours in the day, so you have to
Yeah.
find a way to put in all different things. As I
Exactly.
said, I have a wife and now kids, so
Mhm,
it's a lot more challenging to
mhm.
find the time in order to dedicate to them. But if I was like 18 without those responsibilities, I think it'd be a little bit easier. But
Yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah,
maybe so. Well, and maybe not because in your scenario, like you said, your wife was able to let you know, hey,
exactly.
relax a little bit because you probably would have needed it anyways. I've talked to the younger people on the podcast who maybe were fresh out of high school, and they've had to come to like the similar conclusion though, even without maybe a partner that maybe needs more of their time. They're like, man, I'm going crazy.
Right.
They need to sleep before their before their check ride and
Yes,
stuff
please
like
do
that.
that.
Yeah. So exactly, please do that. Okay, so you kind of figure out the balance a little bit. What maybe became one of your favorite things? Like, what's something that kind of charges you up in aviation?
There's a lot because aviation in general is just super cool. It's a plane, you're flying. It's not supposed to fly, but you're doing it. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
new things really excite me. Going through the program, it was kind of like, oh, new rating, new rating. That's kind
yeah.
of what's gonna reset my clock. But now it's flying different things,
Mm,
learning different things. I find knowledge in general kind of cool. Where
yeah,
when people say something like, "Oh, well, I actually know a lot more about that than I think I do."
yeah.
But day to day, here at Addison, we have awesome planes that fly in and out.
Mhm.
We have the aviation show that happens twice a year, so we get
Yeah,
to
it's
see
a
all the
nice airport.
yeah, we get to see all the nice cool stuff and
Hmm.
um, that. But flying different things, and now once you get your license, the
Hmm.
freedom of being able to, I could go down, rent a plane, and fly, go see my family.
Right.
So the freedom of aviation kind of rejuvenates me pretty often. I try
Yeah.
to do that.
It seems like a lot of that was tied to the freedom too, and like I like when you say oh, we're like flying these planes that don't really seem like they should be flying.
No,
And I always thought that's one thing that I've always found interesting. I remember going to the airport and seeing the jets and thinking, why can that fly?
hmm
I always wonder those sorts of things. I think I might have went down a rabbit hole myself one time, at least
right,
before even working here, just to be like, how does that fly? What's a turbine?
Exactly.
And that kind of got me started on some stuff too. And I started working here, and I'm like, nah, talk to you guys about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, but yeah, so the flying part of it, flying different planes, I'm sure that's a good way to expand like the interest. But
Sure.
uh, is that really like something that still keeps you like you're still interested in flying every day? You're never like, oh man, I have to fly today.
No, no, and that's why I know this is where I'm supposed to be.
Hmm.
The days get long, especially when you become a CFI and you start getting a bunch of hours.
Hmm.
But it's also a passion, right? I feel
Hmm.
like you mentioned earlier that people kind of get that bug that just bites them, and they're like,
Hmm.
"Oh, well, kind of just start aviation now."
Yeah.
Um, Whether it bites you at the beginning or you bite you in the middle of your training or even at the end, flying just kind of it's like a itch you can't scratch. No
Yeah.
matter how many flight hours you get, or like, oh, I'm in the plane 6 hours today. Well,
Hmm.
time to hop in that 6 to 8 hour flight. So
Hmm.
it's it just kind of sticks with you, and you're like,
Yeah.
no matter how much you kind of fill it, it's like a glass has a hole in it. It just always keeps draining out. You just got to
Yeah.
keep refilling it.
Yep.
But no, I do feel like aviation is just kind of passion, just to keep going
Yeah.
and keep learning new things and keep flying. So um, otherwise, it's not going to be great for you. But yeah, it could absolutely. I haven't found anybody who's been in thrust or any part of aviation that's been like, I don't have a passion for flying. It just comes to you.
I think that's probably my favorite part of doing the podcast is because people, that's what I get out of. That's what I kind of hear. People, there's no one in here just mailing it in.
Right.
You know what I mean? You can't do that.
No.
And I think that's what I like about pilots, honestly, because you can't be a pilot and mail it in. So
No.
I
No.
like that. So I kind of want to ask. You said something in there. Okay. So, but now that you're a CFI,
Yeah.
what was something that was kind of difficult about transferring into the CFI role from being a student pilot?
Oh, one, the responsibility,
Hmm.
as you're transitioning from the student to now being the CFI, especially through a company like Thrust,
Hmm.
you know, beforehand you were the student and something went wrong and you kind of just look over at them like, hey, you gonna take care of this for me?
Hmm.
And now they're doing the same to you.
Right.
Now you're the guy that has to take over, do the flying and keep everybody in the plane and out and
Hmm.
about around you safe.
Hmm.
Um, I wouldn't say that's the most challenging part because you kind of get taught that going through the program, through CFI, through Double I,
Right.
that's the responsibility, like the heaviness that you'll kind of take on.
Yeah.
So by the time you're in the plane with your first student, you already know it's game time, I guess.
Right. Exactly.
Um,
But then it is game time, and so do
then it
you do you
is.
feel the nerves?
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes you get a little imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
especially when you first start. Like, they want me to teach you how to do all this stuff. Um, but it's the part of learning.
Hmm.
There's a Thrust teaches a way and teaches its instructors a way. Like, this is the flow, especially being a 141 that we need to do things.
Hmm.
But you find your own groove and like spice inside of that training program that
Hmm.
allows you to kind of be your own instructor to some extent,
Hmm.
while keeping the content the same as you move through it.
Hmm.
But yeah, especially initially, you have that was the most challenging part. You're like, y'all want me to do what y'all were doing with me, a little bit
Yeah.
ago. But then
Yeah.
y'all make it easier for me. I thought back, like when I first started as a private, those guys are in the same shoes that I'm in now.
Hmm.
They were low hours to an
Hmm.
extent,
Hmm.
um, newer CFIs, and
Hmm.
they did just well, and we turned out great. So
Yeah.
it's like they can do it, so can I.
Did you ever find a scenario, because we have a pretty big group over here, especially in Addison,
Right.
but I think we do a good job at all our locations to kind of diversify our staff in the sense
Hmm.
that there's always someone around that you can kind of go to, and I always like to ask that, like, was it hard to? Did you have one CFI? Who did you get to go to if you were like were not in a lesson or not in a plane? What did you do when you needed to ask somebody who knew something?
Right. Once again, kind of having that group around you,
Hmm.
you can rely on your CTA
Hmm.
students to kind of help you out if there's something like stumping you.
Hmm.
However, as I said earlier, I've never found a CFI that's kind of like shooting me away or be like,
Hmm.
I'm not going to help you with that question.
Right.
You're not my student. Go talk to your instructor or something like that. I've never had that. I've
Hmm.
never seen that here at Thrust.
Okay.
I feel like we have a pretty open line of communication through everyone.
Hmm.
So I've never did like, oh, I can't ask this person, even if I
Hmm.
did know him. It's more of like, hey, I'm Austin. I have a question in regards to this, and they've always been open to helping me. So, never had that issue in regards of who to ask, or I never questioned if I could ask someone specifically.
Yeah.
If there was a CFI around and mine wasn't, or a friend wasn't that I could ask, uh, Yeah, went right up to him, just asking it.
Okay.
Always turned out great.
That's what I want. That's what I wonder because I'm a question asker,
No, yeah,
obviously here, but I've always been like that, and in in certain environments, I felt kind of not good about asking a lot of questions,
sure,
and to me, that always ended up, in hindsight, that's an indicator of how it was going to kind of go.
right,
That wasn't probably a great environment for me,
sure.
and so for people who feel like that, I like to ask that question, and that means a lot coming from you. You went through the program and you're a CFI, so
Yeah,
you're not saying that from just an instructor point of view.
no, no,
Um,
no. I did
yeah,
that every rating,
no,
probably every day,
hmm
honestly.
yeah,
Um, everyone got people here is great. They
yeah,
want to help you,
yeah.
and that's the thing. A lot of us, especially instructors, came through the program,
Mhm.
so we all want you to succeed.
Right.
We're all in the same boat. Aviation is so tiny as it is that
Yeah.
stepping on people is not the way to do it. Um, so I think we foster that community of I want you to be successful.
Mhm.
So why would I turn you away? You
Right.
don't know what you don't know.
Right.
So if someone's coming to ask you, well, it's our responsibility, not as CFIs, just as people in aviation to help them out with it.
Right. And I'm glad you get to say that because I just feel like I hear that a lot. Again,
Right.
I keep saying that, but I hear that a lot from a lot of the people I've talked to
Right.
here. So I find it really interesting how we've gotten there. And of course, since we're opening new locations, I want to like I'm part of the team that's gonna help share what we're doing
Yeah.
here with other places. So I want to keep that consistent. But now that you're CFI, I'm imagining there's still something you're working on, either as a CFI or as a pilot or as an individual. What's something that you're kind of like working on when you're here at Thrust in terms of growing as a pilot or instructor?
Right. Yeah. Every day you're learning something new. So I
Mm-hmm.
think that's a big key fact of like improving myself,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you first start. There's questions from your students will be asked. You're like, I haven't seen that in a while, or I don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
So being honest, like, hey, I'll get back to you on that for one. But you're always learning.
Mm-hmm.
So day to day, working like we're here to teach the students that come in, and we never want to try to be like that time building thing. I
Yeah.
feel like you can tell when someone's like, I'm just here to time build,
Yeah.
and we definitely we don't foster that a lot here or
Yeah.
at all.
Yeah.
We want the CFIs here to be excited to teach.
Mm-hmm.
But you at the end of the day, you are working towards hours. You want to
Mm-hmm.
get up there so you can eventually go get your ATP to start working for somewhere big if that's like the goal.
Right.
Um, but my goal is more about family side of things. So what kind of would do the best for them. So
Mm-hmm.
that's doing something additional with thrust or eventually going to like a 121 or 135 or something like that carrier.
Yeah.
But like day to day, just
Yeah.
continuous learning, open to new experiences,
Yeah.
and just kind of right now I'm a newer CFI,
Mm-hmm.
especially here with thrust. So continuing to learn as much as I can for more senior instructors. Like, hey,
Right.
this is something I'm experiencing. Have you 9 times out of 10? They're like, yeah, we've
Mm-hmm.
seen that. So how can we do to help improve that for you, or what can they show me that I can be a better instructor?
Right.
So right now, I'm really just kind of focused on the present,
Yeah.
kind of doing the best I can for the students that I have,
Mm-hmm.
and then with that comes with the time to eventually get up there. But it's more of like it will happen regardless.
Right, and I like that you say that, and I really want to go back and ask you some specific, get into some of the stuff you learned through some of
Sure.
your ratings and whatnot. But while we're here, the idea of maybe getting through to a larger role faster is on a lot of people's minds. And I say faster, it's not necessarily the speed of it. I think that people are talking about. Maybe it's more like really just it's almost like there's a little bit of a worry sometimes for
Right.
CFIs in today's industry about getting a job,
Sure.
and I hear people combat that a little bit with a little bit of what you just said, in
Right.
my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. There's no doubt that the market is a little tougher right now,
Yeah.
just because the way the airlines are going.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't mean anything's impossible.
Right.
However, in due time, airlines and stuff like that, which is why it's making everything kind of trickle down a little bit tougher.
Hmm.
So they're just not hiring at the moment.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they're not going to be hiring in 2 months. It doesn't mean they're not going to be hiring in less than that, or even a little bit more than that.
Hmm.
Airlines is cylindrical; it goes up, it goes down, and we're just
Yeah.
in a little bit of the pit. But statistically, it is climbing back up to start the hiring pool again.
Right.
But because of that, CFIs are staying where they are. They're hitting those hours, and then they're having to remain there a little bit longer.
Right.
But at the end of the day, the time comes. You
Yeah.
get the 1500. You do get the job eventually, whether with thrust or some other. You will find an opportunity in flying. That's why aviation is so fun.
Yeah.
People see CFI because that's the most efficient, I guess, way to do it, and the most common way is
Hmm.
being a CFI for a while. But it's not the only way.
Yeah.
There's so many other things that you can do in order to get those hours. At the end of the day, you will eventually hit those hours. You will
Hmm.
eventually get an opportunity at 121 or whatever
Hmm.
your goals are as a pilot.
Hmm.
Um, so statistically, yes, we're in a lower portion, but it's always been that way. It's
Right.
always been that way. So by the time like a new private now, like let's say they started next month, by
Yeah.
the time they got a CFI, started working, hit the 1500, you'd probably be at the top of the pinnacle again.
Yeah.
It's just how it is.
Yeah, and so I guess I like that you say that because I can see it in some people's faces. They're like kind of concerned. They're like, "Well, I'm just holding on for." I'm like, "It's okay." Like it's not for me to say, right? But
Right.
I'm wanting them to feel okay. Is what I'm thinking about. Because when you, I just feel like when you choose something like really big and you spend a lot of money
Right.
and you spend a lot of time and effort on something that you kind of think a little bigger anyways.
Right.
It's like, hey, it might be a few years down the road, but I'm doing the thing. Um, I guess that's another reason why it seems like I like talking to pilots because you kind of have to be passion oriented to do something difficult
Do.
for a long period of time.
You do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's doing it during the hardship.
Hmm.
When I got in, it was on the high, and then now we're on the downside of it. But, you know, once again, didn't go into aviation. You consider like the financial side of things, right? Like
Absolutely.
eventually when if I'm spending X amount of $1,000 to do the training to go through it, and what is the return, right?
Yeah.
You want to be like, okay, I can pay it off in X amount of years, or
Hmm.
however I want to, like, I can really cram it down and get it knocked out quickly.
Yeah.
So of course that's a consideration, especially going into if you want to be a family guy like I
Hmm.
am now. Um, that is definitely something
Yeah.
like you can't, to some people, to say to, oh, I don't care about the finances, being naive in
Yeah.
regards to it. You have to have some type of consideration to it.
Hmm.
Money runs things right now, right? So
Absolutely.
so it's an
Yeah.
investment, absolutely, but you're right. You have to have a passion in order to do this, to be able to tough it out during the lows. But
Hmm.
once again, in due time, it
Yeah.
all,
In due time.
everybody here that's a CFI, every student that's a student now,
Hmm.
if you stick with it, you will get to that goal that you're wanting to achieve. If it's a 121 like American Airlines
Yeah.
or Delta, you'll get there. It just might take a little longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, at the end of the day, if you don't have a passion for flying, it's hard.
Yeah.
But that's with anything, any job market. Yeah, you
Yeah.
do. If you're not passionate about it and you're in the rut,
Hmm. Hmm.
ouch.
I think the difference is, in my opinion, and maybe I'm just gonna insert my opinion
Yeah.
here. I think the difference between other industries, because I agree, you can, you kind of need your passion to thrive anywhere. But the thing is in aviation, you kind of have to thrive. There is none of the mailing it in.
No.
So you might be able to get certain jobs where you can take it easy and not necessarily want to be an expert,
Right.
right? You don't, maybe some jobs don't require you to be an expert, and
Right.
that's okay. But you know what I mean? It's not, people think that you don't have to have a passion for everything you do.
Right.
And I don't know. I think to thrive, you do.
I think, yeah,
Yeah. So,
right. I think it's important to have that passion, the dedication to want to do it beyond. Like, as I said, finances are important, but they shouldn't be the motivator or the
yeah.
driving
Yeah.
factor in order to make you do it.
Yeah.
Because you'll find during the hard points or the slumps, or,
Yeah.
go to 61 and then
Yeah.
not make a ton. It's
Yeah.
part of it. And you're like, I have this huge bill, not
Yeah.
making a ton of money. How am I going to make it work?
Hmm.
So you can't let that be a driving factor. A consideration, yeah,
Hmm.
absolutely, but not
Right.
something. I think in most pilots, or if not all, they love flying, and
Right.
that's what is their initial driver,
Mhm.
and then everything else becomes secondary. Like, yeah, we're in a rut, but I'm still flying.
Right.
So
Yeah, and I hear a lot of people talk about it that way. So again, thanks for sharing that
yeah,
that portion of it. I think that's always a good, an interesting conversation to see where people's minds are at with where a lot of people are feeling nowadays.
right.
So, but I do want to rewind it back a little bit before we wrap up. I want to ask you about maybe something that if someone's in training now, maybe they can get a little bit out of something you have to say here. And what I would ask is. Firstly, who are you kind of working with the most now as a CFI? Is there a certain rating you're kind of involved in the most?
Um, Actually, I have 6,
Hmm.
and I have 2 in each.
Hmm.
So I have 2 in instrument, 2 in commercial, and 2 in double I.
Okay.
And I just got signed off to do privates yesterday, so
Okay.
I'm gonna start taking on privates. So really, kind of the full spectrum
Okay.
beyond CFI. It's the only one I can't do right now.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
there's a lot of challenges on each one.
Yeah.
Different ratings require different aspects. Instrument, you're all inside,
Right.
and then you hop out back into commercial, and you're all outside again.
Mm-hmm.
And then double I, you're starting to now you have to bring everything from up here and be able to tell someone,
Mm-hmm.
teach it to someone who's never seen it before.
Right.
The biggest thing of advice I guess I could give to students is that there's no one way to do things.
Mm-hmm.
Some people thrive in 12-hour study sessions every single day, and that's the best for them. Some people do videos, and some people need the group session. There's no perfect recipe because individuals are so different in how they learn. If you're in a slump or you're just kind of going through the program in general and like I'm just overwhelmed, because I felt that way initially, because there's just so much to do. We're not looking for perfection. Yeah. Especially we have the program built like the 141 with the stage checks to move through it. We're not looking for this guy's ready to hop in a 737 and go fly 600 people behind him. So you will make mistakes, and you learn mostly from the mistakes. Yeah. So when we point out deficits or things that need to be improved on, it's not a reflection of the student. Mm-hmm. And I think that makes it, sometimes they confuse that. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I failed this or I did that, so I must be a bad pilot. Mm-hmm. That's not.
It's easy to feel that way. I typically can internalize things that are probably too much sometimes.
Right. And that's not our goal. Mm-hmm. Our goal is, we're trying to show you what you can improve on. Mm-hmm. That's not mean you failed. Right. It means, hey, this is something that you can do some more effort on, but it's not something that's going to be end all be all. Right. Because I did the same thing. I failed a stage check one time, and I was like, I'm just a terrible pilot. I'll never do this. And it's not that way. Our goal is to try to help you find your deficits and make you an overall better pilot, but also prepare you for your next step in aviation. Absolutely. So don't have something specific for each rating. That would kind of work, because there's so much like difference you can do, but like in general, people beat themselves up a ton. Especially, I feel like it takes when you come into aviation, you feel like you need to be like on top of the game. You have to be best in everything. I think it's just pilots in general try to do that way. Yeah. But that's not what we're looking for. Exactly. We're still humans. We still can't know everything. Mm-hmm. Someone's always going to be smarter than you. Yeah. So find those people, befriend them, and try to get the knowledge that they have, because there's something you're going to be better at than your friend, and your friend's going to be better at something than you. So,
and I like that you share that. I find that it's a little helpful. It's a little more, for me, it's been easier to kind of fight the need for validation, which is kind of makes me feel like like discourages me sometimes. I think the way that I like the alternative I choose is to be like, okay, am I learning more about a skill? Like, if I kind of, it's like a more objective, if that makes sense, I guess. Right. I kind of think about, okay, like, am I literally better at this skill? And I don't have to necessarily gauge that off of someone's, like, what someone says. You can tell if you're doing something better or not, in my opinion.
Yeah. And the goal through the program is you should see the steps, or you should see the progression that you're kind of feeling. Like with my students, had an instrument student this morning, and I told her that from last flight to this one, just as simple as thinking ahead, where, oh, well, this needs to be done now, and this needs to be done, and then she'll look at me for confirmation, like, oh yeah, well, absolutely. Like, and then we talked about on the ground, like from last flight to this flight, you knew that like the little voice in your head was saying something needs to be done, and then you ended up doing and catching it. So we're not looking for these, oh, you were here today and then way up here tomorrow. It's these incrementally you're adding, you're building. A lot of pilots and students think they should always be up here, and that's just not realistic. You're going to start here, and it's just the next building block, the next building block, the next building block. Right. And then eventually you're at the top where you're at. All right, well, there's my next rating, and then time to restart again on the bottom. Right. We don't expect anybody to come in here and be standing on 20 metaphorical blocks. Yeah. We expect you to be here, and as long as we're seeing improvement, but most importantly, the student sees improvement in their own flying and ability. That's what kind of motivates me when you were talking about earlier, is seeing the little building blocks that the students are making every single day, that where they go from, let's say, can't land to, oh, I can almost land, to I almost did it, to I'm landing now. So
that's awesome.
So those are the kind of the stuff that keeps you.
And I did want to ask you then, because I didn't think about this. Did you know that becoming a CFI was likely to be a part of your journey?
I did.
Before you started?
I did. I taught through college, so I enjoyed the teaching aspect of things. So I knew being a CFI was going to be a stepping stone for me. I wanted to be at Thrust when I got here, but if it wasn't, I was going to go somewhere else and do it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I knew I wanted to be a CFI.
I feel like it has to be, objectively, it seems like it has to be a bit refreshing where you're at now versus where you were kind of like questioning in your job before
Right.
as the manager of the veterinary
Right.
clinic, I think it was. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of what you were asking for, right?
Right. Yeah, I thought about it, and from kind of thinking about a year and a half ago now, um, going from thinking, "Hey, I wanted to be a pilot," and oh my gosh, look at all those ratings
Yeah.
and all the tests and all the stuff that I have to get through. And then a year and a half later, really in a year, is when
Mm.
I could start in July 24, and then finish July of 25.
Yeah.
So from start to finish took a year, and all of those big hurdles and stuff I saw at the beginning were behind me. And then
Yeah.
the next step was like, well, am I going to have the opportunity to come back and fly with Thrust? So,
Right.
kind of what you were saying, being in the office on the computer,
Hmm.
looking up flight schools, to now being a CFI at my flight school, building my way up towards the next step. It went crazy.
Yeah.
It went quick, and
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the opportunity to be doing it. So,
And I think about the desires I've had to make some changes I've wanted to in my life. Like, oh, I really want to go for that. I want to go for that. But and the amount of time I have spent kind of going for it, not going for it, or things that I have really gone for. I mean, no matter which way I've looked at it, all the different things I've done, a year to a year and a half. I mean, it seems like a lot of progress to me.
right, and it
So that
is.
seems like really, yeah,
Right.
that seems like pretty
It is.
far.
It definitely was.
Yeah,
And I did not know the path. If you'd have
yeah,
told me this how it would have worked out a year and a half ago, I'd be like, oh, well, that sounds cool, but that sounds like a lot.
yeah,
You don't have to have the road paved in order to start.
yeah,
You just once again, have to have that know that I want to do that.
yeah, yeah.
Or I think I want to do it, come do a
Okay.
discovery flight, right? And see if
Yeah,
that is. But yeah,
a step in front of the other.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. It is. It really is. It's one day. You don't know the steps going through Thrust. We have the guidelines and stuff, but it really is one day after the other,
yeah,
kind of figuring out what you're going to do. And I had a lot of life happen in between starting the program.
You said you had a kid.
Yeah, I had a
Yeah,
kid. I had a kid during my commercial rating,
yeah,
and then had a newborn and toddler, or not toddler, but a newborn going through the rest of my rating. So
yeah,
that was another rock that
yeah,
was thrown in, but it all works out.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
I feel like if you wait for the perfect time, there's never going to be a perfect time.
yeah.
It's if whether you're in a career already and been doing it for a while, or like what I did post grad
Mm-hmm.
and was like, God, I don't really want to do what I thought I wanted to do,
Yeah,
or out of high school,
yeah,
and we're like, I have no idea what I want to do, but planes seem really cool. And then
yeah.
there's no stars aligned moment when to start training or to kind of take
Mm-hmm.
the leap, kind of like the leap of faith. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a religious guy, so we
Mm-hmm.
prayed on it, and it's the path that turned on for us, the
Yeah,
doors that opened, and we
yeah.
ended up doing it. So
That's awesome. A lot. I mean, I typically at times can get stuck on like the risk factor of things, and I always been like a risk taker. But even in these
right,
days that I'm in now, at the age that I'm at now, I think about it a lot more.
right,
And but you still kind of took what I think a lot of people would consider a big risk.
it is.
And but maybe not with the way that you were talking about it. You kind of knew you wanted to do it, and you just did it. It didn't sound like a risk as you talked about it,
Right.
but it feels like one beforehand to me.
Yeah,
So
I wouldn't
yeah,
say it wasn't a risk. A
yeah,
lot of uncertainty. Once again, kind of going back, I had this degree.
yeah.
I didn't really have much debt through my undergrad through like scholarships,
Okay.
but I had a guaranteed path through Mississippi State's vet school. I could continue through that path, and had 4 years later and been a doctor. And this was like completely pivoting in an industry that was unknown to me, my family. But also the biggest leap was taking my wife.
Mm.
Like, what does that mean for her? And she kind of made it, allowed me to even do this. She paid the bills, she did everything for that year while I was going through the program, and
Yeah.
so it is a leap. And then what happens if I got out or decided halfway through that that's not what I wanted to do?
Yeah.
So
You could be afraid of yourself at that point. Yeah.
exactly, it's more fear within myself.
Yeah.
Am I taking this huge risk?
Mhm.
So risky in that aspect, but not a risk as like, once I got into it and I realized this is the path for me,
Mhm.
then the risk kind of went away. It's like, I'm going to continue this regardless. So,
Awesome.
but yeah, once again,
But that's a good way to put it though, that you didn't really necessarily need see the success of the whole thing yet
no.
to kind of feel good about the decision. You just kind of get to a place where like, oh yeah, I can do this.
Right,
Yeah.
right, yeah. And
Yeah.
once you started flying every day, and eventually got one rating, then the next, I was like, yeah. Once again, if you love what you do, you're never going to work, right?
Yeah, awesome.
And really, being a student's work.
Yeah.
You can't really have a ton of job outside of this. It's ground, flight, study the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it works out. You get passionate about it, and then hopefully you get that light bulb moment if you didn't already, where you're
Yeah.
like,
That
this is
itch.
what I want to do. Exactly.
Yeah.
The bug comes and bites you if you didn't already.
Yeah.
You're like, this is what I meant to do. So
Awesome. Okay. Well, it's great to hear. I mean, I feel like there's so many other things we did. I like to ask people a little bit more about their ratings and some of the things that they struggled with, and advice and stuff like that. But honestly, I like a lot of the things we talked about. I think we've gotten to almost an hour here.
Cool.
And so I'll just ask you this. Is there any part of these ratings that you are already beginning to instruct within? Is there any part of any of those ratings that you're kind of excited to dive into with someone, maybe because you had your own experience with it?
Right. I loved instrument.
Mhm.
I feel like people, it's 50-50 that
Mhm.
you either love or hate it. But in reality, that's the one you're going to be doing every single day, especially when you go up.
Yeah.
So I love going into like procedural things and into like regulations
Right.
and kind of having, once again, I like understanding stuff. So
Yeah.
instruments kind of like all about understanding stuff. Like you can
Right.
get your way through with like commercial and with like private,
Mhm.
with having the base level. But once you start getting into instrument and then eventually CFII and stuff like that, where you have to
Yeah.
have this increased level. But to me, flying was like flying in the clouds. Like when I
Yeah.
started pilots, I was like, the flying in the clouds. That's
The
being a
part.
pilot. So I was most excited for instruments. So maybe that
Yeah.
kind of funneled into why I loved it so much.
Mhm.
Um, but I love teaching instrument.
Yeah.
I
That reason it
love
sounds like
learning
that.
about it and instructing students on it, especially when they get stumped on one part. Like, oh, I can't wait to tell you about looking at it this way, and it makes so
Yeah.
much more sense. So, but I love all the ratings, but
Yeah.
instrument it's always been like my favorite.
That's cool, and it's I like the idea of like you get to maybe get people into the clouds the way that you wanted to be. That's
Right,
kind of cool.
right. Now it's like when you're a student, when you're instrument flying, as long as it's just clouds and we're not like having a thunderstorm or something nearby, we're going up,
Yeah.
and we get to see, we get to look out your plane, and there's nothing but black cloud or white cloud depending on what time of day you're flying, and
Mhm.
no more ground anymore. So it's
Mhm.
a whole different world when you're doing it. So
Yeah.
it's love doing that.
I'm gonna have to. It's been a while since I've been up with one of you guys. I sort of did a discovery flight a while back now. I don't know if it was like the end of last year or something like that, but uh, I want to start sticking around and maybe we can go up and get some footage and come up with one of you guys and during golden hour.
Oh
I would
yeah.
love to. I haven't been up actually yet in any of our planes during a time of day that's really interesting to see. I did go up during the eclipse. I
Yes,
did go up during
yes,
the
I saw
eclipse,
that.
but I was in a high wing, so it was not
Not the
as
same.
cool. Yeah.
No, yeah, go up, take a opportunity.
Yeah.
I do morning stuff, but some of the
Yeah.
guys do the evening, and now it's getting dark, at 6, so it's
So it's
really
even
not that
easier.
bad. Yeah,
Yeah, actually, that I
and
didn't think about that.
and it's super pretty now.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the clouds, like everything turns basically like red along the clouds, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful. Once
Yeah.
again, religious, so I think
Yeah.
it's God's creation to go up there
Yeah.
and see all that pretty stuff, and
Yeah.
um,
I think
it's a
someone painted it for sure. It's pretty.
exactly, and
So,
well,
yeah.
you'll just never see that on the ground.
Yeah.
That's one of the great opportunities of why flying is so amazing is you'll
Mhm.
get to see a perspective that very few will ever get to see
Mhm.
in the cockpit.
I agree. Yeah. Okay. Well, I look forward to flying now
Yeah,
soon because I haven't been up in a while. And thank you, Austin, for joining
of
us on this
course.
episode of Pilots Say What, where we get to hear what pilots have to say. Again, we do this weekly on our Thrust Flight channel. Thrust Flight is a flight school. We're primarily located, not primarily, we started in Addison, but now we have Phoenix, Conroe, Texas, and Denison, Texas. So if you guys are anywhere near a Thrust Flight, come give us a visit. But if you're just thinking about flying and you're not near a Thrust Flight, don't let that stop you. Please go look, Google flight school near me. I mean, that's, you know what I
Uh,
mean? That's all you got to
at
do.
work.
Yeah, exactly. At work if you have to. I don't, just do it at work. It's okay. No one's looking.
Lunch break, lunch break.
Yeah, lunch break maybe, honestly. But anyhow, we do this every week. If you're still watching, then please like, comment, subscribe. It does a lot and helps more viewers find us. And you never know who might start flying tomorrow. So we'll see you guys on the next episode.